Twitch too there. All right, welcome to Ask the Wizard After Dark for, well, it's just about 2 o'clock in the morning, so it is now August the 26th. If you happen to be as crazy as me and be up this hour, hop over and say hi. Broadcasting live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch right now. I'm actually going to replay a show from 2017, an audio podcast here, but I wanted to give just a bit of a preamble. I haven't listened to it all, so it'll be interesting to listen to it myself and to see how things have, I guess, maybe changed since in the last, 5 years. Show notes. Close to 17 years ago, I received what I describe as my life's mission. I was so sure about exactly how my life was going to look for the duration of my time on this earth. Turns out, it's not exactly what I thought it would be. In many ways, it's so much more. I'm just not 100% sure about the more. So I was teaching a long time ago in Edmonton, and one of the things with geometrics, so many of you are familiar, whether in person or all the online things that I've done with geometrics, which is the circles and the triangles and the spirals and all that kind of stuff, which are like maps that really take a lot of the mystery out of a lot of these concepts and philosophies that can seem pretty ethereal and, well, kind of fluffy. Like how do I apply these things? And so these maps allow us to, in a very practical yet powerful way, apply these techniques and these understandings in our everyday lives. And the inspired thought came to me, and it was about orange juice. And I don't even know how it was used, but here's the way it was used. So I was explaining that let's say you want some orange juice. Now you really want orange juice. Now you can get a glass of orange juice. You can get a 1 liter, I guess, of orange juice. You could get a 2 liter of orange juice. You could get it in a plastic container. You could get it in a glass container. You can get orange juice in all these different forms. And that was the point of this, was helping us to understand that what we really, really want is the orange juice. The type of container isn't such a big deal because it's just a different way of packaging the same orange juice. And it will be interesting, as I said, because this show that I'm going to bring on here shortly, it's about 15 minutes, I did 5 years ago. So it'll be neat to see what has changed between then and now. I know many things have. And one of the things I've been learning, and it's been a challenge, is just that when I talk about on the show how I received my mission, again, 17 years ago, and I think in some ways what I did was I mistook the container for the orange juice. And so in the last, well, I guess come up 3 years, I've lost track now. Kind of since the apocalypse started, that container that I thought was my mission, and it was, but remembering it, what really mattered was the orange juice. And I happened to be serving the orange juice in this particular container. Well, the container disappeared. Like disappeared. And it's that sort of disappearance was, and still is, but it's much better now, very painful, because I thought I'd lost my mission. See, that's the thing, because I'd lost the container. I thought I'd lost the orange juice. And what I'm understanding is the container Well, it's how we package it, how I packaged it. That wasn't the mission. The mission was the orange juice. And I think as we grow and, well, I guess I'd like to say maybe mature and evolve and all those cool words, we start to allow the containers to change, understanding that it's the orange juice that really, really matters. And even though our mission may, from at least the external, look different, there's still a mission and it's still there. And allowing ourselves, I wrote some ebooks a long time ago too, and I just seen it pop up as a memories actually on Facebook, and talking about sort of allowing that container, that when it's sort of, I don't want to say outlives its usefulness, but when it's done, to allow that container to fall away so a new container can be presented to us. Now, it doesn't mean that you lose everything, but the packaging changes. And I think that's important to remember too. It doesn't mean that you lose every little thing, like the whole container, and you go, oh, I'll never see any of it again. But the container changes, and there will be some things that will stay the same. There'll be an awful lot that looks different, at least when you look at it externally. But the orange juice is always there. And I think in some respects, as we evolve and mature and all those cool words, we start to realize that it's the orange juice that matters. And that it can be presented in so many different ways as we carry on through our life experience. Maybe you thought you had a mission and now the container's gone. And so you think very logically that your mission is gone. Well, maybe it's my suggestion is maybe it's just a container that is being changed. And the mission, the root of the mission, the core, the essence of the mission is alive and well. As a matter of fact, it's just growing and expanding in some really amazing, cool ways, even though you maybe don't know exactly what that looks like. It still is. All right, so without further ado, let me just bring on the show. Now I might have to adjust the volume here. We'll see how it goes. All right, this is Ask the Wizard After Dark, and pre-recorded show from, again, so where am I at? August of 2017. All right, here we go. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Ask the Wizard Coaching and Mentoring After Dark. I'm your host, Russ Leteau, aka The Wizard. Hello and welcome to another episode of Ask the Wizard After Dark. I'm your host, Russ Leteau. My apologies for not doing a broadcast last night. I'm in my home office in Red Deer, Alberta, Canada, and we had a significant wind storm last night, knocked out our power, so while I could talk all I wanted, I couldn't get it anywhere other than here. I've been on this path now, as many of you are aware, and I've mentioned before, for 13 years. And very early on, the summer of 2004, when I first started dabbling in this thing called meditation. I had no idea what it was, but I had an experience that took me through that thin veil that separates the mundane from the magical. and I had caught a very real glimpse of a world behind the world, of a world that actually gives form to everything that we call physical. And it was during that time I received what I like to call my mission, my purpose. For me, it was more a mission. And I saw very clearly a vision of the universe, whether you call it universe, God, source, or Earl, it really doesn't matter. It's the relationship that matters. The universe placing a mantle upon my shoulders that I willingly accepted, and I received my mission. And really, from that moment forward, my life has been about doing my very best to fulfill that mission, to follow the leadings of the universe, the proverbial breadcrumbs, if you will, doing my best to go where I feel like I'm being led and to honor that mission. And you see, when we start to step into that, we start to remember who we are. Now for me, an important clarifier is I said, remember who we are. Not even so much discover or learn, but remember. You see, when we learn something, we are taking information that we didn't previously know, and we're learning it, we're assimilating it. You see, when we remember, we already know the truth. We've just forgotten. So when we remember, the knowing is already there. It's just been shrouded in this multi-layered cocoon of what we've decided to call life. And when I practiced this thing called meditation, not knowing at all what I was doing, but I had a taste of the other side of the veil, and I knew there was a world there. I knew it. It wasn't because I read it in a book. It wasn't somebody else's story. It was my story. It was my experience. And I wanted more. So much more. And so, while I read, I watched, I talked to people, the time that I spent in quiet meditation created sent out an invitation for me to remember. And as I simply sat there, practicing being present, being aware of what I felt, being aware of the thoughts that I noticed, the pictures in my mind, things started to change. The air around me began to feel different. How did it feel different? I couldn't articulate it then, and I really can't now. I just knew it felt different. And then I noticed pictures and movies playing out in my mind that at first glance seemed like daydreams. You know, those wispy adventures we go on, and then we come back and they disappear as soon as we're done. Except these daydreams were different. They weren't simply random synopsis in my brain. There was something else. There were movies with characters who played parts, who had voices that would speak. But there was something different about them. They seemed more real. They seemed more substantial. And I wouldn't forget them. Unlike the random fantasies that flow in and out. The scattering of images and vignettes that disappear. These didn't. As a matter of fact, when one would start, it would actually carry over into the next evening's meditation and pick up just like chapter 2 in a book. And I didn't forget them. The first step in discovering your purpose, discovering who you are, discovering your reason for being here, is the understanding that you don't have to discover any of that. You don't have to go find it. You already know. You have just forgotten. Way back when, 13 years ago, I received one piece of my mission, and that was to act as a catalyst for people to remember who they are. I received that 13 years ago, and it's clear today as when it first happened. Whether it's a Reiki workshop, a meditation gathering, a broadcast like this one, personal treatments, coaching sessions, in so many ways, maybe in every way, all I'm doing is introducing a catalyst for you to remember who you are. You see, when you remember who you are, everything changes. And remembering is far easier than learning. Because once you take the time to be still, you remember. You can't stop it. And what we're really, really looking for is who we are. Who we really are. Not some fluffy platitude, but who we really are. That unshakable knowing that no matter what my external circumstances tell me, no matter what the voices in my head tell me, I know who I am. And during these broadcasts, and this one is no exception, I'm still doing the same thing. I'm offering you a catalyst for you to remember who you are. What do you have to do, you ask? What's your role in it? Well, your role is to do nothing. Simply listen to the vibrations of my voice and the music and feel source wisdom flowing through me and reigniting your remembrance of your true identity. You see, back then, I began to remember. And now, no matter what, I know who I am. I know where I belong. in the mission fields, fulfilling my mission, and every one of us has a mission and a mission field to carry it out in. It was November of 2015, I believe, maybe October. And things weren't going great. There wasn't a lot of workshops. There was more expenses than income. The future was looking less than rosy. And I found myself on my way to a Reiki workshop in Anaheim. And I hadn't been there for some time. I really hadn't been anywhere for some time. In this workshop in Anaheim, I had one student. And I went. I went anyway. Why? Because I know who I am, and I know where I belong. And as I hopped on the plane, arrived in the airport, that, while it was very familiar to me, it had been a long time since I'd seen that airport. Hopped on the shuttle, went to the hotel, and I sat in the hotel that evening. When I looked around, I felt the warm, moist air of Southern California, the warm breeze, the palm trees swaying. And I said to myself, I'm home. Because I knew who I was, what my mission was, and what I was here to do, and where I belonged. I was where I belonged. Not specifically just in Anaheim, but I belonged on the road. I belonged on the road, sharing my message and introducing the catalyst for people to remember who they are. And even though everything in my external circumstances viciously denied that truth, it could not shake me, because I knew that that was where I belonged, and that was who I was. And this radio broadcast is doing that same thing for you. It's introducing that catalyst for you to remember who you are. And as you remember who you are, that changes everything. Because then you don't need that external validation of it or the internal one. It cannot be shaken. Sometimes we're bruised and battered, but when you know who you are, it's a foundation that cannot be moved. And it is my desire in this broadcast to help you remember. So what do you want to talk about? Have you been looking for your mission and your purpose? Have you been wondering why you're here? Do you think you know, but it seems so difficult? Are you doubting? Are you really? All right, that was good. My first question is, Shauna Lee, what are you doing up at 2:22 in the morning? that was really interesting for me. Oh, and Edith, my goodness, what are you ladies doing up at 2:22 in the morning? Well, that was really interesting because, as I said in the preamble, that was broadcast 2017, so 5 years ago. It was really kind of neat to listen now. The very end is what really kind of resonated with me about remembering who we are and our mission being an aspect or an outpouring of who we are. I started the preamble of the show talking about how I use the example of orange juice, and we can get orange juice in many different sizes of containers, different types of containers, glass containers, plastic containers, but it's still orange juice. And sometimes we mistake our mission for the container as opposed to the orange juice, because the container is always changing. The orange juice isn't. And I know for myself, that's what I've been learning in this last while, is that the container that I thought I would have for the rest of my time here on this earth isn't. And so that container in so many ways is kind of fallen away. And I don't really have a new one complete yet. But what's interesting is it's not just the container that's being renewed. I think in many ways it's us. As I said in the show, I sort of referred to remembering who you are, remembering who I am. And I think that's an evolving task or discovery. It's a discovery that keeps discovering itself, because who we are changes, just like the container changes. And it's really kind of neat. I've used this expression a long time ago, that everything in our physical world has a beginning, a middle, and an end, and these containers have a beginning, a middle, and an end. And in a way, it's almost like who we are has a beginning, a middle, and an end. And I don't mean that the end is like everything that you were just suddenly disappears, but it's like a constant rebirthing, I think, of who we are. And so remembering who we are is a verb. It's not a destination. It's a process, and we're continually being renewed and or reborn, if you could use that word again. And in a way, we're dying. It's a bit of an extreme word, but we're dying and being reborn, and dying and being reborn, and dying and being reborn over and over and over and over and over again. I guess so. In some respects, we are designed to be many different people in our time on this earth. And so in a way, it's like who we are is evolving and growing and changing, which means it is like that rebirth and that renewing. And so then that changes everything as well. But there still is that mission, but it's just packaged in so many different ways, and it's maybe delivered by so many different people, which is us, which is kind of neat. Just as I talk about this now, the kind of the thoughts that are coming back to me was because I've seen these visions like years ago, and I guess I always thought that the person that I'll use that word, is the one that was going to deliver that mission. And then when the packaging, the external, kind of was falling away, so I'm thinking, well, what the hell were all those visions about then? And then the thought is, well, maybe it's somebody else that is going to do that. Maybe my role was sort of only to carry the baton, if you will, so far. And then I pass that off to somebody else to take it the rest of the way. And what's just kind of coming into my awareness now is, what if that's exactly true? But what if the other person that is going to, again, sort of take the work that I've done in this chapter and then carry it through to the next is me? but it's a different version of me, which is kind of neat when you look at it that way. So maybe I was right when I sort of thought or wondered that maybe this is as far as I go. And maybe it's somebody else is now going to take it. Geometrics, for example, right? The circles and the triangles, there's so much value in that. You know, I was thinking, but maybe I'm the one that just creates it, but somebody else is going to take it and kind of get the message to the world, sort of thing. And again, maybe that's true. But the person that's going to get it to the world is me. It's just a different version of myself. And maybe that's one of the things that's happening now is in this last, like they call it the apocalypse, which to me is not a wrong word, is that we are being, it's like those pieces of us that we've outgrown, if I can use that word, are kind of falling away, and a new version of who we are is being born, which is kind of a neat way of looking at it when you think about it. And it kind of fits in so many ways. So that's kind of neat. Interesting thing to think about at 2:30 in the morning. Hopefully you guys can sleep after this show. Thanks for tuning in. Share. We're all in this together. This has been a broadcast of Ask the Wizard After Dark, a replay, as I said, simulcast on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch. The audio is stripped from this and uploaded to Spotify. If you want to find the podcast on Spotify, just search for Ask the Wizard Coach and you'll find me there. Right, guys, thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you on the web.